episode 116 of Nothing to Say, the Fans podcast. We actually have a returning guest of the show, but a new one for the YouTube side of it. Our friend Keegan from high school joins us. And Keegs, it's good to have you. We've been trying. I know I mentioned getting you on a couple weeks ago, and we couldn't make it happen, but I'm glad actually that we waited for this weekend to do it. So.
Yes, indeed. Thank you guys for having me. It's good to be here. Good to be back and on camera for the first time. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, like you said, I'm excited about this weekend. Or as you can see, I'm repping the Bengals. So our two teams are going up against each other this weekend. So I'm excited.
So Sam and I last show had mentioned that this show was going to be just an unprecedented level of joy if his team won and my team won, and that both ended up happening. So this is going to be a really fun show. Sam, before we even get to any of the football stuff, give me like a quick recap of emotions watching that game for the 49ers.
I think Joe Buck put it perfectly. That game was like a total metaphor for the 49ers season. It started off completely awful, just as the Niners season did. They got it back on track, and at the very end, they turned it out somehow, some way. I don't know how they won that game, but I was jumping up and down in my apartment alone, and I was just so elated, especially when Jimmy threw that pass to tie the game, and I was like, yes, they didn't screw it up. They didn't F up. Let's go. And I felt so good for Jimmy and all the hardship. It was just how you can't not be happy after watching that game.
You know, it's funny you put it that way because in a way, I guess the Raiders game was also similar. It was kind of a referendum of their season. I mean, they get out to a really fast start, and then they give up 14 points in about 8 minutes. And then we go to overtime, and then they haven't lost in overtime this entire season, and they ended up winning. They actually said on the broadcast that Carr hasn't ever lost in overtime if he's gotten a chance to possess the ball, which I was like, we just didn't get all of our games to overtime at that point. So, and they ended up playing better towards the very end. So I guess in a similar fashion, it was sort of the same thing. Sam and I were stressing about both of our games. Keegan was sitting here pretty. They locked up the division. They were just cleaning up house with Cleveland.
Yep.
So quickly, and I want to actually before I even ask you anything about your team, because I want to save a lot of the football stuff for after. Normally, when we bring you on, we're actually interviewing you to talk about soccer and your school, but you're actually done. It was your last season, and you guys did really well. So just for anybody who's watching who knows you and who doesn't know exactly what happened, just quick recap of your final season and what you guys did, because you mentioned that it was something that the school hadn't done before.
Yeah. So I finished at Penn State a couple weeks ago. I just graduated, but it was also my last year on the soccer team, and we actually did really, really well. So prior to this season, the 2 seasons before, we finished second in the Big Ten, and we didn't. So in the Big Ten, there's the regular season, and then there's also a tournament at the end. In the past 2 years, we finished second in the regular season, and we came runners up in the tournament last year. So we came so close in both phases of the season, but we came up short recently. But this past year, we won both the regular season and the tournament. First time the program has ever done that, and it was also the first time. I don't remember the last time we beat them, but it was the first time since I've been there that we beat Indiana, and that was in the tournament final, which was an unreal feeling. At the end of the game, like it was snowing. Our student section stormed the field after. It was an unreal season, but yeah, we did really, really well. Won 2 championships, got 2 titles. Our NCAA game didn't go as planned. I don't even know if I want to say it, but we lost 8-2. Yeah, I didn't misspeak. We lost 8-2 against Hofstra in our second round. So we had a first round bye because we did well in the regular season, and then we got sick. No, I shouldn't say we, but half the team got sick the week leading up to our game, and we had about half of our team out. It was non-COVID related. It was just like the normal flu that was going around. But half our team wasn't able to train for the entire week. And then when we came back, we were not ourselves. Let's just say that.
Makes sense. Yeah.
But all in all, it was a great season. Just really unfortunate how it ended.
Yeah, we can move steadily past.
Yeah.
I mean, just focus on congratulations on the finish.
Thank
and
you.
I mean, that is huge as a team. I mean, that's awesome. And then congratulations on graduating too.
Thank you.
That is huge.
It is nice to feel done. I know you know the feeling of that, Sam. Jason, you're almost there, but yeah, it's a good feeling. I'm honestly though, I will say I'm pretty bored right now. I haven't really had much to do, but I'm keeping myself busy. But it is a weird feeling because like today was first day of classes back at Penn State. So I was talking to a couple guys on the team, but it does feel weird not being back there because first time in a while I haven't had to go back to school in January.
Yeah, I remember when some of my volleyball teammates were coming back to Oregon the next year, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're going to classes, blah blah blah." I'm like, "Whoa, this feels so weird that I'm not like going right now." Because that's been the life for 4 years.
Yeah, it really has.
And unfortunate for me with my profession, it's just going to be something I'm going to do over and over again and again and again. But school year is going to be a thing for forever, pretty much. So for you, are you going to Ray Lewis this whole thing and walk off? Are you done with soccer, or do you have any plans to do like coach or play again, or was that your final game?
So
I know it's a tough question to ask, but I mean,
no, it's fair. And I've been asked that question a lot since I've been home, but as of right now, I think I'm officially retired, but there is a slim possibility, not a slim possibility, there is actually a real possibility that I come out of retirement. I'm planning on going to grad school for physical therapy, and two of the schools that I applied to have soccer teams, and I have another year of eligibility. So if I am admitted to one of those schools and I decide on going there, I would reach out to the coaches because I know a couple guys on those teams who can put me in contact with them, just gauging their interest in having me, even if it's just like as a practice player. Because I don't know how realistic it would be to be a grad student in a program like physical therapy and also being a student athlete on top of it. I mean, I know people who have done grad programs and be able to play, but physical therapy is kind of another beast, but we'll see. But as of right now, I am technically retired, so we'll see.
welcome to the retired life, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I'll give you a little. So Jenna actually, she played volleyball her first year in her OT grad program, and it was nuts. She did not have any chance to breathe with playing volleyball, and then how much studying she had to do. I mean, she had to retake like anatomy, so then she had to like take. Oh my gosh, it was nuts. She was so relieved once it was over, but it was honestly such an awesome experience for her because she met so many people from it, coming from like going up here and then like having those people with like
it was a different school, right, from undergrad to OT school. Okay.
Yeah, so she went from Sonoma State to up here in Tacoma to Puget Sound.
Okay. Yeah, that first year of grad school is always usually the most difficult just because you have to like relearn everything right away. So yeah, we'll see.
Well, whatever you end up deciding to do, you always have a spot to come on here and talk about your success as a soccer player. You probably are. You honestly, looking back at it, you're probably our most high profile guest
I appreciate that
we've ever had. So
I appreciate that.
I mean, which is funny to say because I mean, I've known you since middle school. So, but it's just, I mean, it's one of those things where everybody goes on and does their own thing. So
gas them up, Jason. Just gas them up.
Oh yeah.
Keegan,
I made this guy a highlight tape senior year, and it was legendary. True. It was legendary.
And now you can say you have a 2-time Big Ten champion on your guys' show.
Boom, there you go.
Wow.
Easy. We're gonna market that out the wazoo.
There you go.
All right. Well, we'll I'll be, like I said, I'm sure we'll have you on plenty more times in the future. So it'll be fun to see if you end up playing again, or if not, I guess it'll be fun to see how busy you end up being.
Yeah.
With your grad program. But again, congrats on all that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good deal. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about what just happened over the weekend. So if you guys were expecting a show where we were going to cover just like normal most of the games over the weekend. We're not. We really only care about a few games. So just letting you know in advance. And that first game we have to jump to is the 49ers in that Rams game. And Sam, I'll just give it to you. You do your thing on that game.
Yeah, because I guess I was the only one that watched this game.
Yeah, I was at drill, so.
But the stage is set. New Orleans is destroying Atlanta, so the Niners have to win this game against a, I guess, fully motivated LA Rams team because they had to win this game to win the division. And yeah, like I said before, they started off completely awful. Jimmy's throwing picks. They're down 17-0 heading into half. And the Niners just put a couple first downs together and then put a mini drive to get a late field goal at the end of the first half. And then there's a little bit of hope going into it, but it looks bleak. There's the whole Sean McVay is undefeated in every game that he's played with a lead going into halftime. That's a whole thing. The Rams are playing out of their mind. The Niners can't even string a drive together. All these things are going on. And then boom, the Niners receive the second-hand kickoff. They go right down and score, hold the Rams to a 3-and-out. Boom, go down and score again off of that trick play. I don't know if you guys saw that, but the Debo pass play to the guy that was wide open, that was probably on. So just an awesome drive. That play was a 10-run and then that one pass drive. So just smash mouth football that I think if Kyle Shanahan could draw up a drive, I think that would be what he wants to do every single time. But the game just completely flipped. And it was, I was really relieved to see that because it would have just sucked if the Niners got blown out and taken out of the playoffs. It was awesome to see that defense step up. D'Amico Ryan, as the first-year coordinator, has really come into his own with defensive play calling, and that defensive line just completely imposed their will on Matthew Stafford in that offensive line in that passing game. Matthew Stafford started, I think it was 13 straight completions in the first half. And then the second half, he had 3 completions out of 10 attempts with an interception and and he got sacked 4 times in that second half. It was completely different. But even with all that being said, I mean, somehow they get into overtime and there's this, same with the Chargers Raiders game. There's this option that, hey, maybe these teams finish overtime still tied and they both get in. That was still thrown around all throughout the game. But yeah, it was just, I think it showed so much about this Niner team that they were able to come back against a really, really good Rams team and find a way to make it into the playoffs.
Well, you know what the funny thing is because like you said, neither one of us watched the game, and that being Keegan and I, and I'm looking at the stats. And if I were just to look at the box score and all the stats inside, I would have guessed that the 49ers won by 2 touchdowns. I mean, the 49ers had 449 yards to the Rams, 265. The Niners had over 100 more passing yards. They had 70 more rushing yards. Their average yards per play was about 3 yards more. They had more first downs. They had more total plays. They allowed less sacks. And they held the ball longer than the Rams did. I mean, by all accounts, the 49ers won this game in all 3 phases. So it's interesting to hear, you talk about how they jumped out to this gigantic lead because, I mean, the paper tells you that didn't happen.
And you think about how many things have to go right to beat a really good team, especially a team that you've already seen before on the road. And we had Jimmy G coming off injury with an injury to his thumb on his throwing hand. So he's already coming in with an added disadvantage. You have the punter, Mitch Wisnowski, gets injured on his first punt. So now you have Robbie Gould, who hasn't punted since 2007. He's your primary punter. And guess what? Oh, Wisnowski is also your holder. So on field goals, we have Kyle Juszczyk, who he's the all-star fullback. It's just, oh yeah, I can hold. Comes in, no problem. It's all these things are working against the Niner, and they go off to they're down. They spot him 17 points. All these things happen after that, and it's just so crazy. I mean, Robbie Gould had 240+ yard punts, having not punted since 2007. That is amazing. They said it. I mean, Troy said it. He was like, just worry about catching the ball. I don't even think. When's the last time he caught a snap like that?
Yeah.
Like that is so. It's just amazing how they got this done.
So Keegan, I asked you if you were going to play anymore. Do you think you could punt? Because
I've tried punting. Like so late in the season when in Pennsylvania it snows, right? And late in the season it got too cold and we had to train outdoor, or we were going to train outdoors, but it was raining and it was like 40 degrees out. So they're like, no, there's no point in training outside. So we went indoors to our indoor facility. That's where football practice is. And after practice, we were just like cooling down, stretching, whatever. And there was a football still out. And I decided to pick it up and tried to punt. It is not easy. It is like a completely different technique of like where you got to hit the ball and how you swing your leg. So if you were to ask me to kick a football or to punt a football, no, I couldn't. Mine went really far left, and then I tried adjusting and went really far right. It didn't go very far. It's not easy.
I never thought it'd be easy, but I always wondered, and I know the techniques are so completely and utterly different, but I always wondered if there was any sort of translation factor between, kicking a soccer ball and punting a football. I feel like kicking a field goal would translate more than probably punting.
Probably. I haven't tried I think I tried in high school, but not recently, so I could not say from experience.
Yeah, I would think like a goalie drop kick or something would be like, but isn't it like a different motion than punting?
Yeah, because like they go more like across their body. Like I feel like with NFL punters, you're more in line.
Yeah.
With soccer players or with keepers, I feel like they go more across their body and like swing from right to left.
Well, so with this game and Keegan, so I have to ask you, and I probably should have asked you this beforehand, but in terms of keeping up with the NFL season, how in depth have you been? I know you've been keeping up with your team, but the other teams as well.
Pretty surface level, to be honest.
Okay. Well, even with that, we're looking at the first round matchups right now. Green Bay's got the bye. Philly is at the Bucks. The 49ers are going to Dallas. And then the Rams dropped, so they are at home against the Cardinals. So I'll start with you, Keegan. In terms of the first round matchups, which game to you seems like it's going to be the most intriguing of the three from the NFC?
I would think that Cardinals-Rams game, just because I feel like both of those teams did not end the season very well. I remember watching I think they played earlier this year on like a Thursday night because I went over to my friend's house to watch it. I thought it was going to be like a shootout, and I don't remember the exact game, but I thought it was going to be better than what it was. And I just feel like the way that the two teams ended their season, like the Rams obviously lost, but they won their division, but the Cardinals could have won their division if they would have won against who they play yesterday, the Seahawks, who weren't that good this year. I don't know. I feel like that game is a redemption game for both of these teams because you always hear like people talking about teams picking up momentum at the right time of the year, and I feel like neither of those teams have that right now. So I think that one's going to be the most interesting.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because they kind of, I mean, you're right, but it's weird. So they're meeting at the same endpoint right now, but the paths that they took were really different, and also outside expectations and how the public viewed both of these teams were so drastically different. Because when you look at the Cardinals were, the number one seed in the NFL for a really long time, but there was always that crowd of people who was never really giving them a whole lot of credit. Like, yeah, they're winning all of these games, but do we actually trust Arizona? Do we actually trust Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury and this offense and just that whole thing? And then a little bit, they started to get their respect, but then they kind of puttered off towards the end. So you have this team that was better than probably most people realized. And then you have the Rams, who at the beginning of the season were being picked for like the Super Bowl. Like unequivocally, they were going to go to the Super Bowl. And then they started off pretty well. And it was like, oh, yep, there they are. And then they started to go down and everybody was like, what is happening to the Rams? And it sort of felt like you said, they sort of just skidded to the finish line a little bit with a pretty decent record. I mean, a good record. They were 12-5, but it almost felt like that 12-5 record wasn't as impressive as the Rams, I guess, felt like, and even the public felt like it should have been. So they end up meeting in the same place. And I think for people watching, it's like, okay, which one of these teams is actually better? Because on paper, you'd think LA was, but it was probably the Cardinals who looked better the majority of the season. So it's a really weird kind of dynamic for both of these teams. Sam, what do you think? I mean, I know that the 49ers are going to Dallas, but we're looking at the first round matchups, and which one are you looking at?
Yeah, I think I definitely would give the slight edge to LA. I think both of them struggled in the second half of the year, but I think Arizona just unequivocally was worse to finish off the year than LA was. And for some reason, I mean, that Seahawks game is just really weird. Like the Cardinals going in, they know they need to win this game to possibly get home field in the first round. And then they come out and allow 38 to a Seahawks team that hasn't looked that good probably since the first 3 weeks of the year. That's just that's like a really alarming result in this final week. Yeah, I mean, I just think LA won the second time that they played the second matchup, so they won the latest one. It's in LA, and they just have they honestly are the more talented team. I think that's such a brainless answer, but like they have just more talent to throw at Arizona than I think Arizona has at this current moment.
I think out of these first round matchups, looking at this, the way that the 49ers have sort of finished the season, if they can put a complete game together, I think Dallas is going to be in some trouble. I mean, I've heard so many people after that game really go, I don't know who would want to play the 49ers right now. And I know that they started off, like you said, sort of poor in that last game, but they play a style of football that is just really difficult to beat if it's on. And they've been on towards the end of the season. Keegan talked about finishing the season well, and they have finished the season really well. How confident are you in this game?
They won 7 out of their 9 games. I actually feel pretty good about it because I was trying to look it up really quickly. As you're alluding to the current form that the Niners are on, they finished winning 7 out of their last 9. And really this is, I think, like the perfect opponent for them because the Dallas's inability to really compete against the best teams in the NFC. I mean, they've destroyed the NFC East. We knew that was going to happen, but apart from those games, they really struggled to bring their best against the best teams in the NFC. And I think the Niners have shown that they could beat good teams in this league if they play this way. And I think they also match up really well in making Dak in this offense really uncomfortable. There's going to be plays there because the Niners secondary is super weak, super injured. Like pretty much every team in the NFL has a really injured and littered secondary. But if they can get to Dak and really, I don't know, really just make it really uncomfortable for him, I think he's going to have a rough game.
Yeah, I think the 49, I think I would at least favor the 49ers in this game right now with how they've been playing and the way that Dallas's offense, I mean, their whole team, they started off so well and so hot, but like you said, as of recently, they've sort of, well, I mean, in terms of competing against the big dogs in the NFC, I mean, you and I talked about that a lot over the course of the season, but I mean, even against some teams that it felt like they should have pummeled by like 300 points, there were just some games where they just didn't look like, I guess, quote unquote, themselves. So that's certainly going to be an interesting matchup. I don't think anybody's looking at this Bucs Eagles game and saying that the Eagles are going to be like favored in any sort of way. But then again, the thing that I go back to is last year when the Buccaneers played Washington. I don't think anybody gave Washington like any sort of puncher's chance against the Bucs, and they went out there and Taylor Heineke had himself a day and they played really well. And I think what's going to make that game interesting to me is the way that Philly plays, being so run dominant and having Jalen Hurts as that dual threat quarterback. And, with them just having games where they're rushing for like 200, 250 yards a game. The Buccaneers have a really good run defense, but I'm going to be really curious to see how Philly plays against the Buccaneers, because the Buccaneers are not 100% healthy. And I'm going to be rooting for Philly so hard in this game, because it's going to be so, even if they lose and it's competitive, I think that's going to say so much about Jalen Hurts and what his future with Philly is going to look like. And man, I think that dude deserves to play. I mean, he's done everything so well this year for Philly, and I'm really actually very interested in that game. No, I don't know more than any of the other games, but I think that game is going to be more interesting than a lot of people are realizing. I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but that's sort of my thoughts on that game.
I got a couple buddies from Penn State who are from Jersey and Philly, and they say, don't be surprised if it's going to be a close game. They're actually pretty confident in the Eagles, but I mean, I wouldn't be, but I mean, Eagles fans are Eagles fans, so they're hopeful.
I mean, I give him a shot. It's weird because, like you said, I feel like it could go one of two ways. And if you told me right now that the game was going to be a blowout and the Bucs were going to kill them, I'd be like, okay, that's fair. But if you told me it was going to come down the last play, like, I could see it with the way that the Eagles play. So, Sam, what about you?
Yeah, I think this has been a great year that Philly had, though. Like, we're going to talk about a couple other teams that we didn't think were going to make the playoffs, but Philly making the playoffs in pretty much a rebuilding year. Like, no doubt that what they were doing this year. I don't give them. I think this is a pretty bad matchup for them. What I will say is, Tampa is pretty vulnerable, though. They're not as a sure thing as we would think. The fact that they got up to the 2 seed is kind of surprising. They kind of slid into that 2 seed a little bit too. But
yeah, thanks to Dallas.
I think they sure it up. They've got that Antonio Brown debacle behind them, and they're getting healthier, which is the really important thing. And I think, Philly just doesn't match up super well. But the way to beat a really good quarterback is to make sure he's off the field. And if Philly can just continue to pound that ball against, like you said, a really good run defense, if they're able to have success doing that and win that time of possession, then it's going to be close.
Mm-hmm. And Darius Slay going up against Tom Brady is going to be a fun matchup as well. One of the best lockdown corners in the league. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Quickly, let's do some predictions for the NFC games. We got Rams Cardinals. Keegan, who you siding with, and what's your score?
I'll go Rams, probably just because they're at home, and I think they're going to rebound from this past week. I think Sean McVay's going to learn his lesson about finishing the game and not just focusing on the first half. But I would say I think it's going to be a pretty high scoring game, because is DeAndre Hopkins coming back for the Cardinals next week, or is he still injured? I know he was hurt earlier this year, and there were talks about bringing him back for the playoffs. But regardless, I think both the teams are very good. Both have a capability of scoring a lot of points. So I'm going to go 38-28 Rams.
38-28 Rams. God, if that ends up being the case, that'll be a fun game. The latest report that I see on Google right now is Cliff Kingsbury not sure if DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt will return for playoffs, and that was as of a week ago. So who knows if that is subject to change. Sam, give me your winner and your score for Rams Cardinals.
Yeah, I think Rams take it. I think they have a lot of success running the ball against this team, so I think it's going to be a little lower scored. I'd probably go 24-14 Rams.
24-14 Rams. So I think we're going to do a clean sweep. I think I'm going to take the Rams as well. I think it's going to be more. I mean, it's a divisional game, and they're always close.
This is the third time these teams are meeting this year.
Yeah. So I think I'll take a 27-21 Rams over the Cardinals. So let's go to the Niners Cowboys. Sam, you get the honor of going first. This is your team. We got.
Well, I gotta take the Niners. If I was betting on this game, I wouldn't bet on this game. First off, because you can't bet with your heart. But I don't know a score for this. I think it's gonna be pretty dang close. I'd probably go 24-21 Niners. I think it's at least it's a 3-point game.
That's sort of what that's kind of in the ballpark of what I was thinking. Yeah,
because Dallas is going to put on some points.
I think so. And 21 points isn't anything to be mad about for scoring. Keegan, what you got on this one?
Sorry, Sam, but I think I'm gonna have to go with the Cowboys on this. I don't know. I don't feel confident in the Niners, but if they can show me, they did show me something yesterday, but I just don't know. Being on the road against Dallas, I don't know. I think it's gonna be a really close game. What did you say? 24-21?
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of in that ballpark too. I'm gonna go 24-20 Cowboys.
24-20 Cowboys.
And hey, all I want is a good game. As long as they're in it late, as long as it's not like a blowout and I'm sitting there in the fourth quarter, it's like, oh, the Niners have no chance.
Right. That's what I was hoping for the Raiders last night. I think I'm going to go with I'm going to roll with the momentum of the 49ers. I think there is something to be said about that. And I don't know if Dallas matches up well with San Francisco. I mean, I know Micah Parsons is an absolute machine. He's not even human. But I think there's something to be said about how much the 49ers want to just run it right down your throat. And I think eventually they're going to break. And I think that they're going to get some pressure on Dak. So give me, I think I agree with Sam. 24-21 was what I was going to go with. So I'm going to go 24-21 as well. San Francisco over Dallas.
Yeah,
and then we have
one more thing. I think this game is super scary also for the Niners because they're so reliant on ball control, and Dallas is so good at turning teams over in different ways. I mean, Diggs and Parsons forcing fumbles and interceptions. I mean, if the Niners can keep a hold of the ball and Jimmy doesn't throw a pick, I think they win pretty handily.
I was going to say this game is going to be really on the back of Jimmy G not throwing picks.
Yeah.
So
Because I think that yesterday's game was the only game I think they won where Jimmy threw like multiple interceptions this year.
Right. All right. So let's do Bucs Eagles to wrap up the NFC conversation. Let's do. Yeah. Sorry. I forgot.
Yeah,
with Sam.
It doesn't matter. I'll take the Bucs. I think they'll probably win 28-14.
28-14. All right, 28-14. Keegan, who you got?
I got the Bucs too. I think it's going to be a close game for most of it, but I think the Bucs are going to pull away late. I'm going to go 31-17 Bucs.
31-17 Bucs. Yeah, I'll take the Bucs as well. I hope I'm wrong. Like I really hope it's not as big of a blowout as I think it might be. I know I said that they have a shot, but like I said, I feel like it's either I could see it going one of two ways. So I think I'm going to go logically and say the Bucs are going to win big, and I think I'll go 28-17 Bucs over the Eagles. All right, so we'll get to the AFC. That's where Keegan and I's teams make our home. Keegan had a very relaxing weekend. He had nothing to worry about. He just watched Jamar Chase the last weekend go absolutely bonkers with the 3 touchdowns. If he doesn't win Offensive Rookie of the Year, then I don't know what the award is even for.
There's no way he doesn't get it at this point. There's no way.
He played. I mean, think about how well he played, and think about how much better his stats would look if he didn't forget how to catch the ball the first week or two.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was funny because it's not like, for him and Joe to be on the same team and for it to just start off like why are they connecting with each other? It's funny how quickly that changes.
Yeah. I will say, last time I was on the show, I think we talked about the draft, and this was pre-draft, and I think I explicitly said don't draft Jamar Chase because we needed help with the offensive line, and we still do because I think Joe Burrow is like one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league right now. But I will say drafting Jamar Chase has been one of the best things that the Bengals have done this year, but if not the best.
I mean, is it safe to say that they're already the second best duo in the NFL behind Rodgers and Devontae?
Ooh.
It might be.
Yeah,
I mean the other two that would probably give you an argument for that, especially this season. Now it's only been one season. I guess it's only been one for Joe and Jamar, but Stafford and Kupp would be another one that you'd say. But
yeah, I mean the stats back it up. I think definitely top three, maybe behind Rodgers and Stafford with their wide receivers. But yeah, they're something special. They're going to be good for a long time.
All right. So did you guys watch the game last night?
The Raiders game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So actually, I want your guys' thoughts on the game before I even say anything about the game. And Keegan, I'll start with you because Sam started us off with the NFC. So I'll just get your quick thoughts on this game.
Well, earlier in the week, last week, I remember seeing somebody tweeted that like, if miraculously, if the Colts lose to Jacksonville, if these two teams, the Raiders and the Chargers, just kneel and tie the game, if they just kneel for an hour straight, then they both go to the playoffs and it wouldn't matter. So I thought that was interesting. And then somehow the Colts lose, and I'm like, okay. And then I was watching the Steelers game earlier in the day, and I'm like, there's no way the Steelers win, but they won, and they were basically in the playoffs as long as these two teams didn't tie. And then I'm watching this game, and I'm like, oh my God, they might tie. And I was watching the overtime, and it was honestly, okay, I got to give a shout out to Justin Herbert because late in the game, for him to come back and for them to convert, I don't know how many fourth downs.
I think it was
like,
6. It was 6 or 7,
was insane. I couldn't believe he kept doing it. I think that guy's going to be a stud as well. He already is, but.
Well, he's better than Joe Burrow, so.
I don't know about that.
That's a debate we can have, actually.
Who would you rather have in your team for the next 10 years?
Oh, Herbert, by far.
You're a little biased, though, so just a little bit.
He threw for 5,000 yards in his second year.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I didn't realize how big Herbert was. He's bigger than Josh Allen. I didn't know that. Yeah, he's taller than Josh Allen, and he outweighs him too, I think. Which when I'm watching them, it doesn't look like it. It looks like Josh Allen is a behemoth out there. I don't know why Herbert that doesn't translate.
Maybe it's because he's got a baby face. He looks really young.
He does. He does. So Sam, what about you? What about this game?
Yeah, I think you first got to start with Herbert's performance. I mean, that dude is carrying that team through all the bad decisions to go for it on fourth downs. But that last drive, I don't think I've ever seen a drive like that where they were just marching down the field, 3 plays, okay, 4th and 10, and they're just converting every single time. And then it was like at the buzzer, it was like with time going out.
It was funny because when we went into overtime, my dad looked at me. He's like, literally on the clock right now. It says 28-27, and we have the lead, and there's 0 time left. but we're not going to win this game right now. And I was like, I know it's
and you think about all the things that had to go right for LA to even get to overtime. I mean, they were down by 2 scores. They had to go for the 2-point conversion, and all these things had to go right for them to just make it. And then they ended up scoring first in overtime too, to put the pressure on the Raiders. But hats off to Derek Carr.
The Raiders scored first.
Did they?
Yeah, because they had the ball first. Yeah.
Oh man. But hats off to the Raiders. I mean, with how well the Chargers played and how they just lost momentum late in that game, they just stuck with it. And that team was completely resilient, and man, they made the playoffs. I can't believe that the the Las Vegas Raiders are a playoff team, but they deserved it after that game.
So honestly, and I mean, for me, like going back to 2016, I felt like as a fan, especially as a fan who was like raised like literally from day one to be a Raider fan, I felt kind of cheated out of that 2016 playoffs because for me, like my conscious nature of watching football, I've never actually really seen the Raiders in the playoffs. I mean, that 2016 team, I mean, there were people picking them to go to the Super Bowl before the playoffs even started. I remember that conversation happening on ESPN. And for Derek to get hurt and to miss out on that, I mean, that was horrible. That really, really hurt. So I think as a fan, for me, it hasn't actually sunk in yet that they're in the playoffs. And I'm going to have to like see it on Saturday to like really appreciate it. Because for me, I've never really experienced that. And especially, I mean, being a Raiders and a Kings fan, there's not a lot to celebrate all that often. Uh, so, but before I even talk about the Raiders for a second, I have to say, when the overtime was getting down to the last couple seconds, I looked at my dad and I was like, honestly, the best thing, I don't even care about winning right now because because they had the ball and there was like 50 seconds left, and I was like, we're either going to tie or we're going to win this game. But I was like, they should just kneel. I was like, both of these teams after this game, they deserve to be in the playoffs. I was like, I don't care. Like, bring after the way that the Chargers fought tooth and nail to come back and that performance by Herbert, it was like they both deserve to be in the playoffs. And the Chargers are better than the Steelers. So I mean, I was looking at my dad and I was like, they honestly after this game, they both deserve to get in. And I think my dad put it best is after we were done watching that game. That game for me was probably the best game I've ever watched of an NFL game at least off the top of my head that I could think of. It has more meaning to me, obviously, because I'm a fan. But I think my dad put it best. He's like, this game could go down as one of those games that have a name, that has a name, like the Holy Roller game, the Tuck Rule game. Like you could easily call this the tie game because of the fact that was a legit thing. Like they could have tied and that could have implemented so many different things. And
there was a lot.
Yeah. And so Al and Chris talking about it on the broadcast as like from the jump that, if they tie and then both teams get in. And I kept saying, I was like, stop talking about the tie. None of these teams are going to play for the tie. And then holy hell, it came down and it was like, nope, they might actually play for the tie. So for the Raiders to get in after being at 6-7, I mean, they ended up going on the road. They beat the Browns, who at the time were in playoff contention. They beat the Broncos, who at the time were in playoff contention. They beat the Colts, who at the time had won like 6 or 7 in a row. They go to Indianapolis and win that game. And then they beat the Chargers as well. So to beat, quote unquote, 4 teams that were heading into the playoffs at their respective time of the season, for them to battle back after everything that went on this season with, Gruden and Ruggs and John Madden passing away and the coaching change and Nate Hobbs a week ago getting a DUI. It was like for everything to go on and for them to get in the playoffs in this fashion, that's such a testament to that team and Derek's leadership. I heard interviews after the game and the players talking about Derek was just so fun to listen to because they love him. And I felt so happy for him because again, he didn't get to play in the 2016 game. So this is going to be his first playoff game. It was the most stressful game I've ever sat through in my entire life. Or I should say stood through in my entire life. And I'm super happy that it worked out the way that it did because I actually had drill this weekend. We got released. I came back and I showed up right at the start of the game. And I wanted to watch it with my dad and my mom. So that was so much fun. It was a blast. And I'm so happy for this team. I got to say, Josh Jacobs was the MVP of that game for me by far. And then Max Crosby. Max Crosby single-handedly wrecked that game. And he does that a lot. I mean, for people who don't actually who don't watch the Raiders all that often, he does that all the time. That's why he's going to the Pro Bowl. That dude, he may not have the sack numbers. I think he only has 8 sacks on the year. But if you watch an entirety of a game, he's in a quarterback's face almost half the plays. He has a motor that just it never stops.
I remember the commentators talking about him towards the end of the game, how everyone was just so tired and like guys could barely run back to the huddle. But every play I was watching Max Crosby because they kept talking about him, and it looked like he barely played. It's like he had so much energy. He controlled quarterback like every time. It was insane.
And then shout out to our boy Colton Miller, who was taking on Joey Bosa a lot, and handled Joey Bosa like just an absolute man. I watched it. There was a play specifically. It was the first time that I noticed Bosa was on Colton's side, and I was like, okay, all right, come on, Colton, and freaking stood Bosa up, and I was like, yeah, I was like, that's our guy, that's our guy. So I loved watching Colton play in that game. That's such a fun thing for him to be on the Raiders. Yeah, I mean, that game was, like I said, I think my dad's right. I think that game is going to have an 8 eventually. I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up going down as like the tie game. So I'm super happy for the team. I'm super happy all around it. That was one of the best feelings after watching the game. And Sam said it actually way earlier in the season. So I got to give him credit for this. He was like, if they end up making it to the playoffs after everything that happened, just wait for the 30-30 that comes out 5 years later about this team. And I was like, you know what? That's very true. And I said it at the beginning of the season too. I was like, this has been my favorite iteration of a Raiders team that I've watched. It felt different from the beginnings. And I do really think that they're better than their record says. But with everything that happened to them, stuff just didn't obviously break their way. And I really do think that the Gruden thing and the Ruggs thing really did affect them in a negative way. So I do think they're better than their record says. I'm not going to say that they're 10-7 record and they should be 14-3. I don't think that's the case or anything like that. But I think with everything that happened, you could probably say that they were maybe an 11-win team rather than a 10-win team. So I'm super happy. And I can't wait for the playoff game Saturday. I was supposed to work Saturday, and I called my boss, and I was like, hey, I'll work extra days, but just give me Saturday off. Just not Saturday. So I got Saturday off. I was like, there's no way I'm missing this game. So I'm actually going to drive back to Roseville to watch the game with my family again, which is going to be a lot of fun. So, and this is one of the biggest reasons why we brought you on, is because now our teams are firmly squared right off against each other. You guys actually beat us earlier in the year, and I think you beat us by like a lot. I think
it was like 30-something to 17.
32-13 was the last time we
32-13.
played.
Wow. Yeah.
So these two teams are obviously in different places right now. That was when the Raiders were kind of on a bit of a downturn, and the Bengals were like sort of hovering, like, are they going to be a really good team or are they not? So they are obviously in different places. I think the Raiders are coming in with a big hunk and swing of momentum. I think they're going to be absolutely fired up for this game, especially Derek. I tell you what, I'm nervous. I'm nervous. I was sitting there and I was like, I honestly don't know which team I would rather play, the Chiefs or the Bengals, whichever way it was going to break, whether or not they tied or won. I wasn't sure which team I wanted to play.
So if they would have tied, they would have played the Chiefs?
Because they would have been the 7th seed and not the 5th seed.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Because
a part of me was like, okay, division opponent. They've actually beat them last year, and they competed with them as well. I don't think, and I know they got obliterated by them earlier in the year, but I was like, it's a divisional opponent and a team that they know. So
yeah,
part of me is like, I was like, part of me feels like it would have been not a better matchup per se, but it's a more familiar matchup playing the Chiefs.
Was that the dancing on the logo game or something like that?
Yeah, the one where they lost by like a bajillion points.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are still, I said it last week, the Chiefs are still scoring on the Raiders right now.
I don't think you would want to play the Chiefs at that point in Arrowhead.
Who knows? I mean, I tried to, I was trying to justify each matchup in a certain way because the two biggest losses for the Raiders this season came against the Bengals and the Chiefs. So you were gonna get one of them.
Yeah.
Either way. So I actually think it is better that the Raiders ended up playing the Bengals because I do think the Chiefs are better than the Bengals. But I mean, dude, may the best team win on Saturday. How do you feel about this game? After the Raiders have won 4 in a row and they had that big win and they're coming to your town. I mean, what do you think about this game?
I mean, even though Bengals are playing at home, they're not like exceptionally great at home. If you look at their home and away record, I had it pulled up. At home, they're 5-4 this year, and away they're 5-3. So I mean, it's not like they have a huge home field advantage. I mean, they are good at home, and I think it would suit the Bengals more just because it's going to be colder. Vegas is used to playing indoors, not used to the cold. So I think it would be interesting. And I did see a stat earlier. I think I told Sam this earlier, but there was a tweet with all the AFC playoff teams' records against other AFC playoff teams. And the Bengals are the only team to have 4 wins and not have any losses against them. They're 4-0 against other playoff teams, which is actually really encouraging because even though the Bengals have had some really bad losses this year, like against the Jets and the Bears earlier this year, they've had some really, really good wins, namely against the Chiefs a couple weeks ago. So if it's anything like the earlier matchup, I'm feeling pretty confident. Although I hate bringing this up because it always comes up when the Bengals make the playoffs, and it's not that often that they do. But I think the Bengals have the longest active drought of playoff wins in like any major sport in the U.S. I think it's been like 30 years since they won a playoff game.
Well, I'll tell you what, your team right now, regardless of what ends up happening on Sunday, I don't think anybody thought that this season they were going to be as good as they are.
No,
and
not.
your guys' core right now, especially on the offensive side of the ball, is legit.
It's pretty scary.
You have 3 outstanding wide receivers, with Boyd, Higgins, and Chase. And then you have Mixon as the Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler-esque running back.
He's been very, very consistent the past few years.
And your tight end, what's his name? CJ, what is his last
Uzuma.
name? Yeah. He's been playing really well. And obviously Burrow is Burrow. So, I mean, I don't watch you guys all that often. How confident are you in your guys' defense?
Defense was like the one thing I wasn't worried about going into this year. They have a lot of really good players. Jesse Bates was like projected to be one of our best players. Like I think Jesse Bates made the Pro Bowl last year. He didn't have like as good of a year as like people thought, but I think as a whole they're like really, really solid. But yeah, I'm excited. The thing about the Bengals is they don't give up a lot of points. They have a pretty good scoring defense. So with that considered, I'm not too worried because I know we're going to put up points.
I'd like to see how many okay, so the Bengals allowed 3 sacks in the game that they played against the Raiders. I'm going to be really the matchup that I'm going to be really, because you mentioned the Bengals offensive line not being great.
It's never been great.
The Raiders defensive line over the past 4 games have been absolutely pummeling offensive lines. They have had a really nice combination on their defensive line with Phylon and Crosby and Ngakoue and Jefferson and even Nassib. Give credit to our D coordinator, but their defensive line over the past couple games, which is so weird to say for the Raiders because last season it was so bad. But that's been the strength of their team for the past 4 games, and they're playing really well. So I'm going to be really interested to see how often they get to Joe Burrow if the offensive line isn't as good as you're saying. Because Max Crosby, I give him the edge against pretty much anybody in the league. And with some of the stunts that they were drawing up last night, the Raiders defensive line was playing out of their mind last night. And with the corners that the Raiders have with Casey Hayward and Nate Hobbs and Trayvon Merrick is playing really well. I'm actually really though our weakest part of our defense is I think the linebacking core. Even though our leading tackler on the team is I think is our middle linebacker. But yeah, Denzel Perryman. But the defensive line and the secondary has been playing really well. So hopefully, I don't know who I want on Jamar because I feel confident in Nate and Casey Hayward to I'm not going to say they're going to contain Jamar Chase, but I think that they can hopefully play that a little bit better. I think the Raiders, having seen the Bengals once, are going to really zone in on Chase. Especially after the game he had 2 weeks ago, I think their defense is going to circle Jamar Chase and say he cannot beat us. And then the defensive line room is going to go, we need to be in Joe Burrow's face the entire game.
Yeah. If you guys can get to Joe Burrow, that was going to make a huge difference. But like you said, the Bengals have 3 really good options at wide receiver. Yeah. T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd are also very, very good. I know Jamar Chase gets a lot of credit just because he's a rookie. He's really flashing. He's having a great year. But T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd are very capable as well.
The only reason why I know a lot about T. Higgins is because I had him on my fantasy team this year. So I saw highlights from him every week, and I saw his stats every week. And I was like, Jamar Chase, who on some of these weeks? Like, this guy's a beast.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Sam, let's get into the matchups actually right now for the weekend, and we'll make our picks and stuff. And Sam, I'll have you pick first. But your thoughts on this the Raiders Bengal game? Give me a winner. Give me a score. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think this one's super interesting because I think Cincinnati is almost like a better version of what we've seen the Chargers be this year. I mean, they're super talented, young quarterback, a lot of weapons on the outside, a really versatile running game with Eckler and Mixon. I mean, they're pretty much like photocopies of each other. And I think that's really reassuring as a Raider fan because of how well their game plan played against that Chargers team. I think they copy and paste that and use it to where they're not giving up the deep ball. It's everything underneath, and you're really forcing Burrow and this team to nickel and dime, give you 15 play drives to score. That's what the Raiders are probably going to force you to do. I'm not super familiar about the Bengals defensive unit. I think because their offense gets so much hype and credit, I think they've just been the focus. But I think they've played pretty solid over the year. I think they're honestly probably a little better than the Chargers defense played this year. So I think that might be their edge at that point and really get them a 3-point win. I think it's going to be that close. I'd probably say Bengals 30, Raiders like 27, something like that.
Gotcha. Keegan?
I think it's going to be a really low-scoring game. I think with how the Raiders are playing on defense and them being, like you said, familiar with their best weapon on offense, I think it's just going to be pretty low-scoring. And I was also looking at the weather. Saturday, when they play, 30 degrees is the high with a chance of snow. I don't know if you guys have ever played in like really cold or snow, but it's not fun. I don't know how it is in football, but I just know from personal experience playing in snow with soccer, it's not fun. But yeah, like I said, I think both of these defenses are very, very good. And I think it is going to be interesting seeing the Raiders defense against the Bengals. And I think the Bengals defense is going to be solid. So I think I'm going to go low scoring game. I think the Bengals are going to win 17-13.
17-13 in a low scoring game. So I'm going to take the middle sort of you two. I'm obviously going to pick the Raiders. I have to. And even if I didn't have to, I do think that the Raiders can win this game. I really do. Especially I went into the Indianapolis game when they had no chance of winning this game, and they did it. And their defense played amazing, and they actually really did a good job at containing Jonathan Taylor. the last 2 games for the Raiders have shown me that when they really decide to dedicate a scheme to stopping a certain aspect of a good offense, it's really worked, at least the past 2 weeks. Like the Jonathan Taylor effect for the Colts never really happened. I mean, he did get over 100 yards, but it was all like nickel and dime kind of like yards. It wasn't anything big like he's been doing. They really did a good job of containing him. And then the Chargers, like with all of the wide receivers, I mean, I know Mike Williams had he had over 100 yards, but it felt like all of, and you mentioned it earlier, the Raiders just making the Chargers sort of nickel and dime down the field. And every once in a while, they kind of had a big breakaway pass, but they never really gave up anything huge.
Yeah, everything was right to the sticks. Like everything was right on the yard markers. I mean, the 10-yard markers.
Was infuriating, by the way, to have it be 4th and 10 and for them to get 10 and a half.
Well, didn't they have a couple where the ball was spotted like just barely, like in the same drive?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think they're really going to hone in on Chase. I'm not going to say he's not going to break one, but I think they're really going to be highlighting Jamar and these wide receivers and going, look, the defensive line, you're going to have to win us this game because you're going to have to make Joe Burrow really uncomfortable. So I think the Raiders are going to pull it out. I think Josh Jacobs, in order to win this game, is going to have to touch the ball over 20 times, and he's going to have to get 80 or 100 yards. And he's got to get – it doesn't have to be like big run plays either. But last night he was having like 4-yard gains and then 5-yard gains. And it was just putting the Raiders in really advantageous positions. And then every once in a while, like the run at the end, the 3rd and 4 run that he broke for 8 yards. It was like, that's perfect for the Raiders. They do so much better in 3rd and 6 and 3rd and 5, and so does every other team. But when you get Hunter Renfrow one-on-one against somebody, 99% of the time he's going to win that matchup. I mean, you guys saw the touchdown, the move that he put on that corner. I mean, he's so hard to cover in space. And Darren Waller's just a huge target. So I think Josh Jacobs is going to have to touch the ball more than 20 times. And the Raiders are going to have to run the ball at least 30-plus times in this game. But I think they're going to get the win. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I'll take the Raiders in like a 24-21 style game. Hell, it could be 24-23. It could be a one. With the way that the Raiders like to play these games, it may come down to a field goal.
No, honestly, the Bengals too. The Bengals are the same way. It's every game that they play, it's pretty close.
And you know who I'm also supremely confident in is Daniel Carlson. That guy has ice in his veins.
Is that the kicker?
Yeah. Dude is just money from anywhere. So I have confidence in him. If it comes down to the final kick, I feel good about our chances with Carlson kicking. So, and Derek has been as clutch as anybody when it comes to the final minutes of games. I think he has more game-winning drives than almost anybody in the league over the past 5 years. So I'll take it if it's going to be a close game. I think we all are in agreement that it's going to be close.
Yeah.
When watching this, what do you hope that they take away? Like, because looking back on that game, it was really Joe Mixon that was the driving force in blowing the Raiders out in that game. I mean, Burrow didn't put up like crazy amazing stats. None of the receivers put up like crazy amazing stats. Like it was Mixon just ran all over.
I think exactly what you said. They need a copy and paste game plan from what they did against the Chargers, because when the Chargers beat the Raiders by a lot, it was Austin Eckler who wrecked the game. Yeah. And Eckler did next to nothing last night. He did not have a great game by his standards. So they did a really good job at really containing him. And I give a lot of credit to the defensive line on that. Phylon being healthy is going to be a big thing. I know he got hurt last night. He was actually the one who blew up that 4th and 1 play at the 19-yard line, which, by the way, we didn't even talk about that. I don't know about you guys, but when they lined up on the 19-yard line, I looked at my dad. I was like, there's absolutely no chance in the world they snap this ball. There's no way. Yeah. You cannot snap this football. And then as soon as they did, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And then it was like, oh, my God, I can't believe they stopped him. But I was sitting there, and I know Al and Chris were on the broadcast talking about it too. But like snapping the ball right there, like what was that?
Well, we also didn't talk about the timeout that they took in overtime.
Which I am convinced if they don't take that timeout, the Raiders kneel the ball and they tie.
100%, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some questionable decisions on the Chargers side.
So we can mention that for a second. What did you guys think about the timeout at the end of the game?
I'm still confused why he did it. Like, I understand wanting to win, but like, there's no point in taking that risk when all you need is a tie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and there's what, 30 seconds left, and if you take that timeout, you have one timeout left. You'll probably get the ball back with 20 seconds. There's no way you score. So I don't understand the point of it.
Yeah, Sam.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe like saw some, like maybe he had to take the timeout. I don't know. It's hard to know like exactly what was going on.
Yeah, it was weird because if you're calling, I think he said that their defense like wasn't set or something like that after the game, or I don't remember exactly what he said. But Josh Jacobs has over 100 yards rushing on you at that point. This whole drive of the Raiders has been just Josh running all over you. The Raiders clearly are in control of the outcome of this game, and they don't seem like they're in any hurry to get down the field and really score. It really felt like, to me, watching how they were calling the plays, that they were just more than content with kneeling this ball and going to the playoffs. Because the head coach of the Raiders, Rich Bisaccia, had mentioned before the game, if it comes down to, he said, I want to get this team into the playoffs, and it doesn't matter how. And that was on the table. And if it felt like the safer move, which it did at that point, seemed like it was going to be the safer move. Yeah, I was under the assumption they were going to kneel that ball and they were going to go play in Kansas City. But
yeah. God, could you imagine being a Steelers fan in that moment? Like before they took the timeout, you're thinking, there's no way we just won like a damn miracle earlier today. And there's no way that these teams are going to tie. And we're about to get knocked out of the playoffs because these teams are tying right now. I couldn't even imagine.
You couldn't script that. Like you can't write that up anywhere. Like just the odds of that happening were so unrealistic, which is why I agree with my dad. I think this game is going to have a name eventually.
It might.
So we got the Patriots and the Bills. Matchup number 3 for this team.
Mm-hmm.
It's split 1-1 this season. Game is in Buffalo. What are you guys thinking?
I think I give the edge to Buffalo. I think New England's definitely played super well this year. I think Buffalo's really righted the ship and leaned on their strong defensive play. I mean, they're grinding out wins. They're not like blowing teams out this like second half of the year. And I think they, with the weather, which I'm assuming is going to be pretty poor in Buffalo. Yeah, I think they're really going to lean on a nice defensive game.
What's the score?
I don't know. I think it's got to be somewhere in the. I feel like it's got to fall somewhere in the 20s. I don't know, 20. I'll just do 2017 Buffalo.
2017 Buffalo. Keegan, what you think?
I'm gonna go New England, just because every time I've tried to go against Bill Belichick, it's not gone well. So I'm gonna go Patriots, and I've heard I forgot who. There was an analyst that I watched on ESPN talk about this before, but just the way that the Bills play, especially on offense, like I love Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, but like how reliant they are on just throwing the ball like damn near every time. Like you can't win a Super Bowl like that. So and it's just so hard to bet against Bill Belichick. So I'm gonna go Patriots 30-24.
30-24. 30-24. So actually, it's funny. I'm actually looking up the box score for the Bills Jets game that happened. The Bills had 424 total yards. The Jets had 53. They ran. I mean, the Bills had a net total of 254 passing yards. The Jets had a net total of 5
You're like dancing on the grave of the Jets right now. Why are you throwing this?
I'm just reading
Jets?
the rushing yards for the Bills were 170 to a net total of 48 for the Jets. And then the yards per play was 5.4 for the Bills and then 1.2 for the Jets.
This was week 18?
This was week 18. So I was just looking at the game because you had mentioned their rushing yards, so I wanted to see what their most recent rushing yards were in a game. And I had to point out the fact that the Jets had a total of net 53 yards because that just caught me off guard. So I'm going to take the Bills in this game. I feel like the more recent of the matchups was probably more realistically what these two teams are. So I'm going to take the Bills 28-17 over the Patriots. I think, and you know what? I could easily see New England winning this game, but I do think the Bills are going to pull it out. I think they're going to win at home, and I think they're going to meet the Raiders in the next round. So, all right. So who do we got with the Steelers and the Chiefs? I think we're all going to side with one team, but it's going to be a score. So, Keegan, who you got, and what's the score?
I'll go Chiefs 42-20. I mean, there's no way the Steelers win this game, right? No way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see them winning this game. Sam?
Give me Chiefs 35. I like that 20 mark. Maybe 17. I don't know. The pass rush for Pittsburgh has is kind of scary, but I mean, Ben can't complete a pass that's farther than 20 yards, so I don't know how they're going to stay with him.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take the Chiefs. I'll take the Chiefs 35 to 20. I'll say the Steelers make it a little bit interesting, but I think the Chiefs are just too good. I think this is the most sure matchup of the entire weekend, even more so than the Bucs-Philly one, that this one's probably going to fall towards the Chiefs. Does that seem reasonable?
I agree.
All right, so I'm not going to run through the scores, but heading down, Keegan's got the Rams, the Cardinals, the Bucs, Chiefs, Patriots, and the Bengals. What?
How can he have the Rams and the Cardinals?
Yeah, wait, I'm confused. You said Rams.
Well, so I'm looking. I only wrote the first letter of each team's name. So
he has the Cowboys.
Yeah, he has the Cowboys. So I apologize for that. So I only wrote the first one. But yeah, so it's the he's got the Rams, he's got the Cowboys, the Bucs, and
Did
then
you take
the
Arizona?
Chiefs.
No, I took Rams.
Oh.
No, I took the Rams. And then he's got the Chiefs in an absolute blowout over the Steelers, the Patriots, and then we have him taking the Bengals. So for Sam again is taking the Rams. He's taking the 49ers, the Bucs, the Chiefs, the Bills, and then the Bengals. And then I have the Rams, the 49ers, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Bills. I'm all over the place right now.
It's a long night.
The Bucs, yeah, the Raiders. So it's gonna be a fun weekend. We got what's the early game? So I'll run through the actual schedule so everybody sort of knows what time everything is.
I think the Bengals and the Raiders are the first game.
I think so. Yeah. Ooh. So Saturday at 1:30 is Raiders Bengals. 5:15 is the Bills Patriots. So primetime game on Saturday. Then Sunday kicks off with the Buccaneers and the Eagles. Mid game is the Cowboys and the 49ers. Sunday night is the Chiefs and the Steelers. And then the final game of wildcard weekend is the Rams and the Cardinals. So that's going to be your 2020 NFL playoffs. Who do you guys think is going to win the Super Bowl? To close this off, we're here in the playoffs. We didn't talk at all about the teams on the bye. So the Titans, who look like they're getting Derrick Henry back, and then the Green Bay Packers. So who is your 2020 Super Bowl pick?
I want to see Green Bay win. I think it'd be so cool to see Aaron Rodgers win another Super Bowl. And I think they've flat out been the best team this year.
I agree.
I think the Packers are a safe bet.
I think they're the safest of any team. The interesting thing is going to be
Titans with Derrick Henry. I mean,
I was just about to say.
We forget how freaking amazing Derrick Henry was this year, and he makes that team so much like levels better than what they were, and they were the number 1 seed this year.
Yeah. I was going to mention them. If Derrick Henry is actually back to full health, then maybe the Titans have a better shot than anybody in the AFC to get.
I think they go through the AFC if he's healthy and looks himself.
Yeah, they haven't seen the Bengals yet, though.
Oh gosh, you're so right. That's on me.
They won't have to see the Bengals after the first round.
Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't get ahead of myself. We still got a ways to go.
Yeah. Oh man, Derrick Henry. I know Jonathan Taylor had a great season, but Derrick Henry was on pace to just. I don't even know what the right word is to describe Derrick Henry. He's a refrigerator with legs. It's insane. Yeah, a 20-mile-an-hour refrigerator.
Yeah, he can move.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, like, I'm trying to think of who in the NBA in the history is like comparable to Derrick Henry as a running back. Like, just this Is this Shaq?
If Shaq could run, yeah.
like who in the NBA is Derrick Henry? Like a guy you just go, you tackle him.
I mean, kind of this current NBA, I'd almost say like Jokic, almost like just physically imposing in such a way. Maybe. Like he is so able to use his body and like, but his game isn't like that power almost. I mean, Shaq's like, I think the perfect comparison.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Well, whatever ends up happening this weekend, I think, like we all said, I mean, we've all picked these scores, and a lot of these games, at least from our picks, I think we all think are going to be fairly close. And whatever ends up happening for who wins and who loses, as long as these games are close. I mean, if you don't have a horse in the race, I know we all do, but if you guys watching don't, then the only thing we can ask is for good football. And all of these matchups on paper look like they're going to be could end up being really good matchups. Like we said, the only one that maybe seems like a surefire bet for a win would be the Chiefs over the Steelers. But hell, who knows? Maybe Najee Harris goes off for 200 yards and has 2-3 touchdowns. You never know. But all of these other matchups.
I got a question for you guys. Looking back now on the 2 changes that the NFL has made to like the scheduling almost purposes with adding another wildcard team and adding another game. What do you guys feel? Did you feel like those were successes, especially with this year? Take, say, week 18 first. Do you guys feel like that was like a major success, or did it add anything for you guys this year, having that extra game, or did you even think about it?
I don't hate it. Like, as a fan, I love it, but I just feel like from a player perspective or as a coach, having that extra game, especially this year with how many players have had to go through the COVID-19 protocol. Like this past week, the Bengals had like 5 or 6 players on the protocol list, and luckily they didn't have to worry about it because the game didn't mean much. But like, I just feel like that added stress of COVID obviously didn't help. But I mean, as a fan, I love it.
Yeah.
Honestly, just pray that none of these games get severely affected by the protocols. You know, you'd hate to have a high-profile quarterback go down and really affect the outcome of the game.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love it because it meant that the Raiders got it. So I mean, for that, I mean, sure. I think the one thing that it does, because they're all divisional matchups, it allows for potential drama against rivals at the end of the season. So like the Chargers and Raiders game, that meant a lot more to each team because it was against each other. and like, oh, we're gonna knock you out, or you're gonna knock us out, or we're gonna hold hands and walk it together. But I asked, and then the 49ers playing against the Rams. I mean, it has a lot of implications for where teams could end up in the playoffs, especially if you end like we did this season with a couple of these games with two teams who are fighting for like legit playoff spots. So I think it makes it more fun with it being against the divisional opponent at the very end. Do they need an 18th week to do that? I don't know. It feels weird to have an odd number of games.
10-7 record looks really weird.
Yeah, so it looks a little strange. The extra wild card team, sure. I mean, why not? I guess.
The reason I bring that up is for me, I actually think this having 17 games, I think added a little bit more. I think for me, you just see more variety with how close teams were this year and how any team could beat any other team any given Sunday. I mean, that's the cliche, but it was, I think, a little more apparent this year than any other year. I think just added something. And the seventh, having 7 spots in, I think adds, because we had, what was the stat, Jason? At one point we had like 26 of the 32 teams were in playoff contention. Like
something like that. With like 2 or 3 weeks left.
It was like, and that's only possible with that 7th. I mean, the drawback I think is we have in no shot against Philly, but like we have Philly and Pittsburgh who make it. And do those games really add anything with them playing the second seeds? I don't honestly know. Because for me, it just seems like there's a major drawback, like a major like step down from the 6th to the 7th for both conferences.
It wouldn't have been, ironically, if the Raiders and Chargers would have tied. You'd have had the Chargers get in, and they'd have been playing the Bengals, which just recently was insane. Like that was that game was fun. And then you'd have the Raiders playing the Chiefs, and the Raiders wouldn't be any slouch walking into Arrowhead. So, yeah, I think, but I do think you're right. It does allow for that. It'll be interesting to see moving forward if that's always going to be the case.
Like we could have had the Saints in the playoffs too, and we have no idea who their quarterback is right now. I think it's Simeon right now, but they've had like 4 different quarterbacks start this year. And they could have made the playoff. I mean, it's kind of interesting. Like you just leave yourself up to potentially have like not as intriguing matchups for wildcard weekend.
Potentially. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see going forward if this is something that they keep or they something that they take back. I think if they did take it back, it would be something that they pulled for another couple seasons. I think they'd get a good collection of data and then move from there. But I mean, like I said, fingers crossed that all these games are good, because there's legit storylines for each team why one team could win or not. And like we said, minus the Steelers and Chiefs one. I mean, I really think that there's a legit possibility that Philly could keep the game close. Whether or not they win, I don't know. But I don't think a lot of people thought Washington was going to play well against the Buccaneers last year. And that was one of the best games of wildcard weekend, if not the best game. So you never know. I mean, the Jaguars just beat the Colts. So while the Colts were vying for a playoff spot. So Carson Wentz, and I was meaning to text this to Bryson, he had a QBR of 4 that game. 4. That's horrible. An average game I read in the league for QBR is 50, and he was at 4.
You think he's coming back next year?
His QBR was the same number as the Jaguars wins. I mean, so is he coming back next year? I don't know. I would love to ask Bryson if he wants Carson Wentz back.
I don't think any Colts fan wants Carson Wentz back. I mean, the way he played, didn't he lose them the Raiders game too?
He did not play well. He did not play well. I thanked him multiple times for it.
Thank you, Carson. Thank you.
I was yelling at the Chargers kicker last night when he had to kick because he ended up missing a field goal. And I was like, look, man, I won't be mad if you miss. So just know that if you go back to the sideline, don't hang your head because I will pat your back and say you'll get him next time, Jim. But
I don't.
Not today.
I know it's like a. It was Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth, right, on the
Yes.
call last night. So Al, like as soon as they're lining up for that field goal, he's like, "Yeah, the Chargers have had kicking troubles like for like a decade now." But I can't remember what that dude's name is. Their Chargers kicker. But he was like, "Yeah, he's really like showing it up and like really like." And then he goes out and misses in like this at the very end of that sentence. And I was like, "You really can't say anything about kicking.
That's why
Like you really can't open your mouth about it."
he said it. They said it again when Carlson went up to kick. Oh, he's never missed in this stadium. And then 2 of his kicks were like this far away from missing. And it was like, stop saying that for the love of God.
Oh, he's a sure thing. This is
Yeah. It happens every time. Every time. Well, do either of you guys work on Saturday and Sunday? Are you guys both watching? Are you watching all the games?
I might be out of town. I know. I'm gonna make it a priority to watch the game, but I might be going up to Tahoe with my friend
oh, very fun.
for his birthday.
Well, I'll be texting you during the Bengals game.
Yeah, well, depends how the game's going, but yes, please do.
Oh man. Well, good luck. Best of luck to the Bengals and to the Raiders, and may the best team win.
Yeah, I'm excited. It should be a good game.
Yeah.
It really should be.
And then Sam, I'm rooting for your 49ers. I really am.
As of right now, I don't have work Saturday or Sunday.
There you go.
That'd be awesome. It was so nice having Sunday off, just watching football.
It's a great day for it.
Oh, it's
Well,
the best day.
Sam's been working. He had a couple shifts recently where he had to be at work at 3 a.m. So
Ooh,
that was
where do you work?
today. I work at Dick's.
3 a.m. That's early.
Yeah, I woke up today. At 12 at midnight, and I couldn't fall back asleep, so I just watched Friends until I had to get up to go to work.
It's a long day.
And then I took a 3-hour nap.
Oh boy.
Legendary line from that show. Oh man. All right. Well, Keegan, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. Anytime.
Yeah, it's always more fun to have a guest on and to talk to somebody else.
Yeah.
Keeps the variety up. So our most high-profile guest, the Big Ten champion.
Two-time.
Two-time Big Ten champion.
There you go.
So, all right. Well, for those of you who stuck around to the end, thank you very much for watching episode 116. We all really do appreciate it. Have a great weekend. We hope you have a fun time watching Wildcard Weekend. We didn't mention anything about the college football playoffs. That's because the game started just a few minutes. 45 minutes ago. So we're all gonna have to watch the rest of the game. So hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the football, and we'll see y'all next week.